welcome back to the Simpleton Review. We are glad you've decided to join us and be part of our show today. All 1.5 of you that actually watch this video, we truly appreciate the time. And I'm pretty sure that's me and probably Charlie and maybe Lem. So, hey guys. So, anyway.
Welcome back.
I gotta tell you, our last few videos have performed really quite well. In fact, some of the best performances are on YouTube that we've had in almost all of our 1.5 to 2 years we've been doing this show. So in 1 week time, we've had, I mean, it's a lot for us. It's not a lot for other people, but you know, we're hitting double digits, which is actually pretty cool for us. So I'm excited. I don't know if that's just because somebody, you know, is making fun of us somewhere. I have no idea. Anyways, this week we're going to be talking about the newish album from The Shivas. And no, we're not talking about the Hindu god. We are talking about the
Portland-based band.
Rock, hillbilly, I don't even know what you want to call this band. Rockabilly? It's not even rockabilly. Rock. Psychedelic? Okay. They're called The Shivas. And the brand new album is called Feels So Good. Is that correct? Charlie, you seem to know a little bit about this band, and of course they are from your hometown, so why don't you tell us about the Shivas, what you know about them?
The funny thing is that I only picked up on them about 3 years ago. They've been around for about 25, but I picked them up at a live show over in Boise. I was checking out Jeffrey Lewis, who's from New York, and they were the opening act, and blew my socks off. I totally loved their show. It jammed so well. It was just before they released their last album. What was that one called? I can't even remember. But it was a spectacular show. So I got really excited when they came out with an album, and so I decided we're going to review it. The unfortunate thing was I didn't listen to it first.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Well, before we go on, we do have a special guest with us today. His name is Kyle. Kyle, what is your last name?
Marshall.
Kyle is joining us from Calgary, Alberta, Canada, the home of the famous North people that are a lot nicer, a lot more kinder, a lot more gentler, and probably a lot more sane than people from the United States. At least
they're going back into their ice caves actually for the winter right now. So we retreat for a few months before the thaw happens in the spring.
We're coming out with our buffalo horns and our tattoos and attacking the Capitol. That's what we do here in our country. Whatever. So, all right. I know, it's embarrassing. It's totally embarrassing. So, Kyle's joining us, and Kyle, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and podcast or whatever else you have?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So, thank you first and foremost as I hit my microphone very, very hard. I'm so excited to be on this podcast, which is why I am flailing my arms around too much. You said I'm from Canada, which is perfectly true. I am a serial podcaster. I have a few different ones that are out there. Probably the most interested of the audience that you have would probably be the most interested in the one I do with my co-host David Yun called Kyle and Dave versus the Machine. Mm-hmm. That is a film podcast, and the very quick synopsis of that is that every season, which is every year that we do it, the evil machine that runs our lives forces us to watch films from only 1 year. So season 1 was all about the year 1999. We were just wrapping up our season 2 on the year 1971. So it was the 50th anniversary of a bunch of things. So we spent our whole year going through that and
it makes me feel old.
I know. Well, the interesting thing about us is that we always try to also figure out is this still culturally relevant? And we're having a hard time a lot with the 70s being well, some things are and some things are very not in some of the movies from that time. So it was fun going through some of those. And then I'm trying to think of anything else I want to think. I'm online all the time. I'm on Twitter all the time and on Instagram and stuff like that. So listen to too many podcasts. I'm a big musical theater fan, which is what I'm going to bring and talk about in this conversation a little bit.
Sweet.
And excited to delve a little bit further.
Right on. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We're just absolutely thrilled to have you on the show today. So, as such, why don't you start off and tell us what is your opinion of this newish album for the Shivas?
For sure. No, you kind of mentioned here in the run-up that you were thinking of the Hindu god. Shiva, to me, I immediately think about the Jewish faith because that's what they call their week of mourning, right? If someone close to them passes away, they go into Shiva, and that's what they do. So I didn't know what I had in my mind, what this band was going to sound like, but it was different than what I was kind of expecting it to sound like just by their name by themselves. So, very quick preamble. I'm going to try and make this as brief as I possibly can.
Sure.
I am a music fan, but I am so out of date as far as like new musicians that are out there. I follow I am of two like very drastically different polar opposites. I either want like totally acoustic, like it is a drum set and a guitar as far as instrumentation goes, or I want the most ostentatious, like you have a brass band behind you and like a bagpipes or something like that, like something that's really weird and interesting.
Okay.
Which is why I like a lot of like glam rock stuff. Like it's very theatrical, over the top, that sort of stuff. Like that's kind of what I more gravitate to. Like I would say, like as a modern band, Arcade Fire is like my sweet spot. Like I really like what they do. So that's my thing.
That's a good choice. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But on the flip side, also like Sufjan Stevens a whole lot. So we have like these two very different polar opposites.
Yes.
These the Shivas, I would say, go more towards the indie rock, very low end instrumentation side of things. I had actually heard in my Spotify shuffle the first song on this record, "Feel So Bad," so I was a bit familiar with that song. I realized I was like, I've heard this before. Where have I heard this before? And it was because it was advertised to me on Spotify. So I'll say this. I actually did enjoy it overall. I call this good driving music because it's really just for background enjoyment, I find. Like, it was not something that I'd be like, oh, I'm going to sit down and listen to this record right now. It's like I'm putting this on while I'm doing something, cooking maybe, writing, driving, like I said. So I like that. I want to talk a little bit about lyrics specifically, but I'll say that overall liked it, enjoyed it. I would say, just as a quick standouts, I thought the "Feel So Bad" I like. "Tell Me That You Love Me" I thought was another standout, and the very last song, "Please Don't Go," are kind of my three favorites, and then all the other ones kind of sounded the same to me, to be honest.
Well, those are some interesting. Is that pretty much it? You had some else?
That'll be my thing. Otherwise, I'll be talking for like another 20 minutes, and I don't want to make this episode too long.
That's fair enough. These guys have to usually make me shut up too. So, Charlie, let's go with you. What was your thoughts on this album?
I thought that okay, so I feel like the same thing happened to these guys that happened to the Squirrel Nut Zippers. The Squirrel Nut Zippers.
Okay, you're starting to walk on hollow ground here, so be careful what you say.
Oh no! You'll agree with me because so the Squirrel Nut Zippers put out "Hot" and they put out "The Inevitable" and they put out even the perennial favorites. All three of those fantastic albums.
Right.
Then they came into Bedlam Ballroom. And the same thing happened to the Shivas that happened to the Squirrel Nut Zippers here. They took the sound and they like evened every sound out, and it totally muddied the waters of the sound. And that's what turned this into driving music, and it just irritated me to no end. Because these folks are actually fantastic musicians, but you couldn't hear any character in what they're playing. I mean, it was nothing. I mean. It was so bland. I mean, I got the teaser track undone from Bandcamp, and I like that track. That is probably the one track I do like for the sound. The unfortunate thing is it doesn't sound like anything else that they've done that I remember. If I were to hear it live, I bet you it'd even sound even more different than any of the recordings, or just because there was no energy in this album to me. It was so deadpan. I mean, it was.
Yeah. Okay.
It's like it kind of reminds me of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, where you got the teacher yelling Bueller.
Right. Lemuel, I gotta go next. I've got these opinions inside. They're just bursting to come out. I mean, they want to come out. So I the biggest thing I want to say right off the top is I want to know whose idea it was to make it sound like they were standing at the end of a hallway for every single song. That mix was god-awful, and if they ever hired that sound engineer again, they need to shoot him and shoot him dead. That was horrible, horrible stuff. Now, if you did that for one song, that'd be one thing. But every single song on the album? What were they thinking? I could do a better job in my little sound booth I created for my voiceover work. That is just terrible, terrible stuff. Tell me how you really feel, Nate. It was awful. It just drove me nuts. Now, having said that, I do appreciate the musicianship, and I really did like some of the sounds. Now, I'm not a big fan of songs that sound the same over and over and over and over again. I mean, each measure just kept on repeating itself, the guitar riffs and everything was just constant. Yeah. But the musicianship is obviously there. The singing was great, and they obviously have good voices. So why did they decide to mix their voices that way? It drove me up the wall.
Between that and they took out, like, they didn't do any solos. They didn't,
No.
it's like, I'm used to, like, good jam spots in these from this band, and
I mean,
they took
you know
out
what?
everything.
They could have done auto-tune, and I would have been more happy than that. It was just horrible. It was, but I did, again, the style of music was okay. I mean, they definitely are influenced by kind of 1960s rock. It really reminded me of bands like the Kinks or maybe even the Who, the Trogs. Yeah, that
the
old,
Kingsman,
right? Yeah, this old 1960s kind of rock and roll, mid to late 60s type stuff. And so I can appreciate that. I like that. I grew up on that. My mom, that first 3 albums I ever played, one of them was the Trogs, the next one was Buffalo Springfield. So it was all that kind of music.
Yeah.
And so I could groove on it that way, but man, it was repetitive, and the mix, I just couldn't get past the mix. The mix drove me up the wall. That was obnoxious.
That might be maybe the frustrating part about this is I think you can tell that there is great musicianship behind everything here, which does make it sometimes a little bit more frustrating. Like, oh, you're handcuffing yourself when you don't need to.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you just look at this, you're like, why are you
I'm
doing
going to play
that?
this guitar with both hands tied behind my back.
It's like, so there reminds me, like, there's his name is Nathan something. He's the lead singer of Fun, right? There's a couple of songs on their breakthrough album. I can't remember the name of that album. The one that has all the songs, We Are Young, all that stuff on there.
Oh yeah.
He auto-tunes his voice a couple of times. Why are you doing that? You have one of the most amazing voices in pop music. Why are you auto-tuning your voice? It was the same kind of thing here. I could tell that these people knew how to sing. It didn't matter which one was doing the lead vocals. I mean, I could tell there was 2 or 3 different ones that were doing the lead vocals on this album. And it was obvious they knew how to sing. Why are they doing that to their voice? It was like somebody just turned up they just moved over to their mixing board and just hit the echo, or the reverb or something, just turned it up. I'm like, oh, dear sweet baby Jesus, save us all, please. Anyway, that's really all I have. Anybody else have any more opinions?
Maybe
or
they have
comments
like the sound compressor is actually a soup can.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was. What are you thinking?
The mixing.
I just want to know whose idea that was, because somebody should have said no.
See, and that's what's funny is Tender Loving Empire was the record company, and they have done some fantastic recordings with other bands, and oh my gosh, this one just sounded wretched.
I almost wonder if they were kind of trying to go for the early Black Keys kind of sound where you
Black Keys sounded better than that.
Well, they did 100%, but I was wondering if they were trying to emulate that. But the only way you could emulate that is by doing exactly what the Black Keys did and record in a literal empty warehouse.
Right, and that's the point. That's the point, is that the engineering wasn't bad on those albums. It was an intentional thing to do. This was not a room. This was something they did with the board that somebody should have just taken the control away from the sound engineer. It just was terrible. All right,
that hand.
I've been really mean. So, anybody else have anything else they want to say about this album?
Well, the only thing I was going to kind of bring up a little bit, and this is kind of a more broader thing about like pop music, rock music, that sort of thing, is it's probably why I don't get so like super enthused by a lot of stuff, because it is always this is a very broad brush, I realize. But most of the time it is hook first, right? We are going music first, hook people in, make them excited to be hearing what they're listening to. And lyrics oftentimes are kind of completely secondary to the experience. And you'll see this in the most bubblegum of pop, right? Where you could put any lyrics into that, it doesn't matter. Like the lyrics straight up just do not matter. You could do nonsense syllables. Yeah. Lyrics just do nonsense syllables for the entire thing. This will show my age a little bit. Go back to like the 90s and mbop and stuff like that. Like it's nonsense. It's completely and utter nonsense.
Right.
Yeah. And so I don't know about these, because I tried to actually look up what the lyrics were for these songs, and there's nothing on the internet that I could find as far as what they are. I know they didn't really stand out to me, which means that you do have to rely on just the musicianship. And save for a couple of moments, I was like, yeah, it's just kind of the same thing on repeat over and over and over again, which is, again, why I keep coming back to this, which sounds like more of a diss than I mean it to be, but it's like, it's I'm doing other stuff. I'm not focusing on the music here then. Yeah. Really, it's just there for background stuff. Like you could put this very easily into like a movie background scene, like people are dancing and talking over top of it, because it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, that is 100% accurate. That is a great way to describe that music. It's really bad. So let's go ahead, and since we have pretty much driven the proverbial stake through this album, let's go ahead and give our review scores. And again, 1 through 5, 5 being the best, like amazing, like the most amazing record ever. 1 being trash heap, burn it. What score do you give him, Kyle?
Well, of course, I'm giving this a 5. And so, no, I'm just kidding.
Okay, nice to have you on the show.
Psych.
No, I was gonna say. We rate the movies on Colin Dave versus the Machine at the end of every episode, and then we average me and my co-host Dave's scores together and keep a running list. And I'm always accused of putting things like half a star more than probably what they deserve, and I'm the first one to admit that. So I'm giving this honestly a 3. I'm kind of in the middle of it, whereas there's some things I actually do like about it, so it's not like a complete like throw it into a dumpster and forget about it. But it's probably also not going to be something like, oh, I'm going to go and listen to this entire record.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to pick 1 or 2 to come back to.
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, you're more generous than I am. I'm not even sure I will ever listen to this album again. Sorry, not sorry, Shivas. I'm sorry. I'm gonna go ahead and give my score as we speak. I'm gonna give it. I'm gonna give it a 1.5. It is harsh. It is hard for me to even listen to. I listened to it twice. The second time just to make sure that I wasn't exaggerating what I was feeling the first time, because I listen to these albums when I'm working at work, and so I just wanted to make sure I was catching everything I was catching, and I was like, oh my goodness. So I'd go listen to the other albums we're reviewing this month, and I was just like, every time I got to this album, I'm like, oh, do I have to press play? So 1.5 for me, and you know what, Shivas, really that's mostly because of your engineering decisions. The band, I do like your instrumentation. I do like your singing. Unfortunately, I couldn't understand most of your lyrics. There was a couple of songs I could understand. The last song, that, as Kyle mentioned, was a good song, and I could understand that. I do appreciate your musicianship, but man, the recording is not good. Charlie, go ahead. What is your score for this album?
Yeah, I'm gonna shoot you a little bit low too. Shivas, I got to give you, as a band, I'm still gonna give you a 4. Okay, but as an album, definitely only a 2. This was not very good. I'm only giving you a 2 because I have 1 song that made a playlist. So and it's like, oh, that is so bad, because you guys have had other albums go way better, and your live shows are phenomenal. So don't ever let those people touch your album. Don't touch your music. Take the control back. Whatever happened, take the control back. Right.
All right, Mr. Lem, what about you?
I think I'm going to have to go with a 2 as well. That first song, as soon as it started playing, the first thing I wrote was like, the vocals are drowned out by everything else. It just was so muddy and gross, and like all the songs, I couldn't really differentiate between the others. I noted that there was 1 song for me that seemed to stand out, and it was a gift. I don't know why. I just wrote this. So far, it's the most interesting song in the whole album. Like, I would turn it on if I was like having a group of people over and wanted some background noise, but that'd be it. So 2.
Well, the problem is there's too much background noise in the album.
That's
that's really the issue here. I don't know. Oh my gosh. We apologize. No, I don't apologize, Shivas. You need to do something about your engineering. Next time, please hire somebody else. Again, I think all 4 of us are convinced that you guys are probably a good band with good musicianship, great vocals. But boy, you need to do something about your album quality. Maybe go back and re-record this album and
remaster.
Remaster that baby. So
do a Taylor Swift. Just record everything over again. Get those
why
master rights.
Yes,
absolutely. That's right. Do a Taylor
absolutely.
Swift. And honestly, her albums that she's re-recorded sound really, really good. They're not bad at all. She's done a good job with those. So we've got a 3 being the highest score today, 1.5 and 2s. I am the lowest score, which is That doesn't usually happen on music albums, does it? Charlie
No, I think
slows it too hard.
I think that's the most range we've had too. Usually we stick within like 0.5 of each other. We're always like kind of the same, but we want to be different a little bit. This time, nah.
Well, Kyle, thank you so much for joining us today. We
Thank
truly
you.
appreciate you being on the show, and we'd love to have you back again sometime. If you would like, we'd love to have you. What do you say? Open invitation?
I would love to come back. It'd be great.
Sweet. Awesome. We'd love to have you. So why don't you go ahead again and tell everybody what your podcast is and where they can find you on all your social media platforms.
So if you want to find me, I am at the Kyle Marshall on pretty much everything. The podcast I mentioned at the very beginning is Kyle and Dave versus the Machine, versus this VS, the Machine. Just in case someone stumbles across this, because this is we're talking about music here. There's another podcast I do called Putting It Together, which is focused on just my favorite Broadway composer, who is Stephen Sondheim, where I actually analyze his lyrics of every song he's ever written. We're just going chronologically through, which is also why it's bugged me so much, because I'm such a lyrics guy.
Wow.
It's like, I can't hear anything that's being sung about. So
That's got to be an interesting podcast. I mean, and probably a lot of work, man. He's a prolific.
It's so much work. It is so much work. There's 18 shows that he's produced. He's still alive. Supposedly coming out with another one next year. And we're about to start Sweeney Todd here in about.
What is he, like 95? I mean, he's got to be pretty up there.
91. Yeah.
Is he? Oh, okay. Yeah. You're about ready to start Sweeney Todd, you said?
Correct. Yeah.
Ooh, I'm going to have to check that one out. That's really good. Yeah. Okay. Well, we will make sure we have links in the show notes to both of those podcasts and your Twitter handles and stuff like that as well. So, again, Kyle, thank you so much for joining us. And, folks out there, if you would like to check out more about the Simpleton Review, you can please do so at thesimpletonreview.com. You can find links you can watch the video there. Find links to our YouTube channel, our audio portion of this podcast. You can also find articles that we write, whether they be video games, music, or movies, and a link to our Discord channel. And we usually try to put trailers and new trailers, video game news, all that kind of stuff. If you are a Twitch person, you can also promote your grind, as it were, on there, and all those kind of things. So please join our Twitch or Discord channel. We'd love to have you on board for the ride. We're not on there 24 hours a day spamming your thing and making your phone go beep, beep, beep. But we do try to post a few trailers and stuff like that as the time goes by. So we'd love to have you. Again, thank you guys so much for joining us here at the Simpleton Review. We look forward to seeing you next week. Bye.